Yes.
All right, welcome back to the Powers on Sports podcast. Our first guest is Peter Blake, my man, the host of our NSPN pregame show that I do with Peter for all the Buccaneer home games. He's also the host of the Sports Web on NSPN, as well as I Love St. Pete Facebook platform, live stream show that he does multiple times a week. And we are going to talk to my man Peter about John Gruden, our Tampa Bay Rays, and all things Tampa Bay sports. Welcome back to the podcast, Peter.
What's going on, buddy? How you doing? Happy Tuesday night. Happy Tampa Bay Lightning Day as they unveiled their banner there for the Stanley Cup, two-time Stanley Cup champions. It's pretty nice to be in Tampa Bay right now, unless, of course, you're the Tampa Bay Rays or unless you're John Gruden.
Yes, we're getting ready to get to Mr. Gruden. It's obviously there's been a whirlwind of activity here in the last 36 hours or so, really 24 hours. But, since Sunday, kind of the news was brewing that something was on the horizon. Before we get to John Gruden, let's talk some Rays. Rays get knocked out of the divisional series, 3-1 in Boston on Monday night. The game Sunday night was very dramatic. The game last night was very dramatic. Just your thoughts about the Red Sox eliminating the Tampa Bay Rays in the divisional series.
Disappointing. The wheels came off in game 2 when the bullpen failed. And then game 3, I kind of felt like the umpires, made some very questionable calls. I get it. It's a rule, Jason Powers. But, for me, the umpires should use some judgment on that. If Yandy Diaz is going around third, why not say, you know what, he would have scored, and that changes the outcome of the game. Furthermore, you have Randy Arozarena, who before that gets a hit, gets, impeded. His progress is impeded. And you say, no, this guy doesn't deserve to be a third. He deserves to be a second. So figure this out for me. How can you make a judgment call on that, but not make a judgment call when the replay clearly states he's around third? But I get it. It's a rule. It needs to be changed. And at the end of the day, it doesn't help for the Rays to strike out 20 times in game 3. And then game 4, you get down 5-0. A very peculiar decision by Kevin Cash and, starting or having Shane McClanahan come in relief instead of start the game. And then at the end of it, you tie it up at 5-5. You have the hottest hitter in postseason right now, and you decide to face him instead of walk him, load the bases, and set up the opportunity not only to have a double play, but a play at home plate for a force out. Makes no sense at all. Kevin Cash, very consistent with making bad decisions during the postseason. Not only did he cost it, but also this ownership. I've been very clear about this, and I'll keep on harping on it. When you decide to get rid of Blake Snell in the offseason, when you decide to get rid of Charlie Morton, could you have used those pitchers in this postseason with those 3 rookies? Absolutely. I get it. You're a 100-win team, but if you're not spending $100 million in this decade, you're not going to win a World Series. And that's why right now the Tampa Bay Rays are at home. They will continue to be at home until their ownership will step up and do what it takes, like the Tampa Bay Lightning and Jeff Vinik, and like the Glazers have done with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
All right, I'm going to push back a little bit because I think I have a couple of different opinions than you on a couple things. First off, the rule for the ground rule double, the umpires had no discretion in that. There's no discretion in that rule. It's a bad rule, and it will get changed in the offseason, but by rule, it's a ground rule double. It's an odd play. You never see it. But by rule, it's a ground rule double. The umpires don't have any discretion. You had to send Kiermaier to second and Yandy Diaz back to third. The obstruction, that is where the umpires have some discretion. They could say, well, if he doesn't get obstructed, we think he would have got to whatever base. In their opinion, they thought he would have only got to second. That's a judgment call. Okay, we can argue that. I agree with that. So I'm gonna, as far as the umpiring go, I'll defend the umpires on the ground rule double because that's the rule. They don't have any discretion in saying, well, he would have scored. That's the rule. The obstruction, you do have some discretion. I want to get to the managerial decisions. We have all said for years how good of a manager Kevin Cash is. And he's a good manager, regular season manager. But 2 straight postseasons, he is he's come up small in the biggest moments of his career, the biggest postseason moments. And this is not an ownership deal. This is not a salary cap deal. And I get your point about spending money and all that stuff. But in the nut crunching time last night, first of all, in the eighth, let's get to the eighth inning first before the ninth inning. The Rays get a big break. They tie the game in the eighth inning. Arozarena is on second base with nobody out. I know Wander Franco's coming up, and he's a big young player. You have to tell Wander Franco, whatever you do, that runner has to get to third base with less than 2 outs. Whether you bunt, whether you pull the ball to the right side, Arozarena has to be at third base with less than 2 outs. You can't let 3 straight guys swing for the fences, get nothing, and Arozarena stranded at second base, because that was your chance to win the game in the eighth inning.
Agree. No, absolutely agree with that. And that's what's happened. Their big-time hitters went cold. Nelson Cruz, you didn't hear from him. That was disappointing. Wander Franco showed flashes of brilliance.
Yep.
20 years old. I mean, the sky's the limit. Randy Arozarena comes through, being great young talent. But, you know, the story is Brandon Lau. I mean, 0 for 18. Why is he still in the lineup?
Pinch hit, Joey Wendell.
Why not? He's an all-star. It makes no sense. And you get passionate about it because, look, Kevin Cash is the Peyton Manning of managers in the regular season. He gets it done during the regular season, but when he gets to the postseason, and you know this all too well until Peyton basically got it off his back, he wasn't able to perform. This is what Kevin Cash is right now. He's a great regular season manager, but when it gets to postseason, you know, last year with Blake Snell pulling him out when he's dealing, ridiculous. I don't care about analytics. I don't care about third time through the order. I know that's how the Rays work, but that's not how baseball always works. The postseason
it's a different animal.
Exactly. Jinx, you said at the same time I did, which is crazy.
Let's go to the ninth inning.
Yes.
So bottom of the ninth inning, you got first off, I didn't like that Kevin Cash doesn't put Wendell in the game to play third base. Much better defender than Yandy Diaz, which obviously he probably gets to the first ball that gets through. Wendell probably does by Vasquez. Then the second ball that's hit by Travis Shaw. Tough play. It wasn't an easy play to Diaz, but Wendell's a better fielder at third base. Probably makes a better throw to Choi at first, which doesn't put Shaw on first base with less than 2 outs. How you do? Okay, so first and third, 1 out, no outs. No, was it first and third with 1 out?
Mm-hmm.
Once Shaw goes to second, you have to walk Kiki Hernandez, the hottest hitter for the Red Sox, to, like you said, set up the double play. First of all, number 2, Devers is slow. He's a heavy guy. He's the kind of guy, if you get a ground ball, you're probably going to turn to, because he's not, where Kiki Hernandez is fast and he's been killing the ball. You can't let Kiki Hernandez beat you with a sacrifice fly when you have a base open. And I just think, I don't know what, it's like Kevin Cash just gets mesmerized by the analytics. I don't understand it.
Or possibly somebody upstairs is making those calls.
Not in that moment. Not in that moment. There's nobody calling Kevin Cash when Travis Shaw's on first base and says, pitch to Kiki Hernandez. Kevin Cash is then what we got to say is, we can't say Kevin Cash is a great manager then. He's a robot.
I mean, I don't know what he is at this point. I know regular season, they're a 100-win team, and I know that he's gotten a lot of credit, but at the end of the day, you're exactly right. During the postseason, it makes no sense.
The 2 biggest moments in his career, he screwed it up.
Yes. Yeah, and the McClanahan thing doesn't make any sense, because it's like John Smoltz said on the broadcast, he's not used to that setting.
Right.
So why would you put him in that setting? Why not start him and then bring in McHugh if you're going to do that?
And McHugh, first of all, never should have taken out McHugh. McHugh was blowing him away.
18 pitches. It's like Blake Snell all over again. I mean, Jason Powers, it makes no sense at all. And this is the reason why Rays fans are so frustrated, because they see the talent, they see the ability, they see what could have been throughout the years, and that's why some of them just don't come out, because they know at the end of the day, the Rays are going to be home. I'm telling you right now, I hate to say this,
but that's not an ownership. That's not an ownership problem. That's That's an on-the-field managerial problem more than it is. And I get your point about spending money and all that. I get it. But when it comes to nut crunching time on the field in the playoffs, that's not the ownership. That's the on-field manager.
Well, it stems from that because it starts out with that after you go to the World Series in Game 6 and you lose to the LA Dodgers, you get rid of two of your biggest horses on that pitching rotation. Could you have not used Charlie Morton? All you had to do is pick up the $15 million option. Guess what? You got Michael Wacha, Chris Archer, and Rich Hill, who, by the way, you traded at the deadline. What did you get for him? For $12 million, you could have had Charlie Morton, who's still in the postseason. We know what he can bring. Blake Snell, I get it. He's not in the postseason, but he could have been a pitcher that, the last month has been one of the most dominating. You could have used that in the rotation.
Right.
And instead, what you're trying to do is cut salary. And the blueprint is out there, Jason. The standard has been set by the Lightning, by the Bucks. They see both of those teams be consistent. They see both of those teams spend money and try to do everything they can to win championships.
Well, I will say you have to give them this. They went out and got Nelson Cruz, who was a big bat. They went out and got him at the trade deadline. They made a couple small little bullpen moves. Again, you're right. It's bad luck, whatever. Again, I just don't like that Kevin Cash keeps making these managerial blunders in the biggest moments.
I agree, but it's a combination of things.
Okay.
And instead of having $60 or $70 million, if you spend that extra $15 million, if you spend that extra $7 to $10 million, what's that make your salary? $90 to $100 million? I mean, I'm just playing the numbers.
Yep.
The last 10 years, all the teams that have won a World Series are over $100 million. And this team continues with their ownership. This is not on the players. This is their ownership. With their ownership to spend less money than everybody else. And all the fans say, well, it's great. They did a great job with what they have. They have more money than they're saying because they're getting revenue sharing and they decide to cut corners. And that's why the fan support isn't there. Again, I was talking to Dennis Phillips of ABC Action News on my show, and he said clearly, the reason why I canceled my season tickets is when they traded Evan Longoria. Consequently, Longoria hits a home run last night for the San Francisco Giants.
Right.
Of course, he's a part of that team.
All right.
That more than likely will win a world championship this year.
I don't know about that. All right. So we're going to give you a live update here on the Power Zone Sports Podcast. The Atlanta Braves have just advanced to the National League Championship Series, beating the Brewers 5-4 in 4 games. Freddie Freeman with the game-winning homer off Josh Hader, bottom of the 8th of Game 4. So your boy Charlie Morton started today, and we'll get another start here in the NLCS. So
amazing.
The Braves.
How many innings did he go, by the way?
I think he went 5 or 6, probably 5. No, probably 4. He didn't pitch great today, but he was on short rest. Didn't pitch great, but he was a workmanlike performance. So give him credit. He's into the next round. So congratulations to the Braves going to the NLCS. The Astros eliminate the White Sox today in 4 games as well. The Giants and the Dodgers are playing Game 4 as we speak. So, all right, I want to move off to baseball. Let's get to the other big story, John Gruden. Now, we know well, we've loved, we liked, we rooted for. What a disaster this has turned out for John Gruden in the last 4 days when the email speculation of the emails came out back from 2010 to 2018, homophobic comments, racist comments, making fun of the commissioner, making fun of the Glazers, making fun of DeMaurice Smith of the Players Association. Did you ever think we'd get to this point?
No, but in this day and age with a lot of people being offended by things, and they should be by these comments, there's nothing about this that you can defend. It's not good at all. It's not a good optic. And on top of it, because he was the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at that time when they won the Super Bowl, and now they've taken him out of the Ring of Honor, instead of talking about how great that team was, what you're going to point to in that instance is John Gruden and those comments, which is sad because it's going to take the focus off truly how great he did a good job with coaching that team, how great the defense was, how the whole story of that season broke out. And it's just, it's the whole situation is disappointing. It's uncomfortable to even talk about because for me, I think the NFL is hypocritical. And I'll tell you why. With these comments, right? And he was fired. Didn't resign. Make no mistake about it.
He was fired.
Goodell went to Mark Davis and said, you need to fire this guy. We need to get him out of here. This is bad optics. This is bad for anything having to do with the shield of the NFL.
And real quick, let me give a little context before you keep going.
Sure. Go for it.
The NFL was doing an investigation of the Washington football team. That's where all these emails came out. They subpoenaed like 600,000 emails from the football team over the last 10 years or so, with all the issues that the football team have had with Daniel Snyder and company, Bruce Allen. And so that's where these John Gruden emails were discovered. And many people think were leaked by the NFL because the NFL wanted the Raiders to do something before last Sunday, and they didn't. And after Sunday's game that he coached and lost against the Bears, the NFL put a lot of pressure on Mark Davis. You better do something here, Mark Davis, on Monday after this game, or you're going to have a big problem with the NFL.
Yeah, and look, I'm not going to be naive, because how many coaches are emailing, it's private emails. So how many coaches are talking like this? How is the locker room talking like this? The thing that's hypocritical for me is Daniel Snyder has had no punishment at all. This guy should not be an owner in the National Football League with all the allegations that came out about his ownership. The pictures that were not talked about.
Cheerleaders on boats.
Right. I mean, this is not good stuff, and yet here's Daniel Snyder getting a pass for it.
He's not. I don't think he's getting a pass. I think with this happening, I think you're going to see some major scrutiny in these emails, and if they find anything related to Daniel Snyder, they're going to do a Donald Sterling situation. They're going to force him to sell that football team, I think.
But the point is, why does it take this long for some action? We already know there were allegations out there. We know that there were stories from writers from DC talking about this situation.
Right.
Why has it taken this outrage? And that is where the NFL is hypocritical, because you look at it from the instance of Ray Rice being suspended for 2 games, having his wife being brought up there until TMZ, until it's a PR nightmare. That's when the NFL cares about domestic abuse, the domestic assault. Until TMZ looks at the Greg Hardy situation, he was only suspended for 2 games. That's where the NFL is talking on the side of their mouth.
Right.
They want to, not look at it, and then when it affects their money or their bottom line, they want to do something about it. And how about this year? You look at John Gruden's comments, but who was announced for the halftime show? I get it. I like these artists, but haven't they said a lot of this stuff too? Dr. Dre, Eminem, Snoop Dogg.
Right.
And yet the reason why they're there is because they provide the American dollar for the National Football League. So I'm saying this, looking at it from the standpoint of referees calling it consistently, why can't the NFL do the same? They don't. And that's why some people are defending Gruden. They shouldn't, but this is the way the NFL has made this look.
No, you make a great point. There's no doubt about it. There's, with John Gruden, the stupidity of John Gruden, sure, has everybody on this planet at some point in their life said something they shouldn't have said about somebody or a group or something. Everybody has. And if you say you've never have, you're lying. We've all said it in some phase, some company of our friends, whatever. But for John Gruden to put it, as smart as he is, to put it in writing in an email form, that's the stupidity of John Gruden.
Yeah, it's a position of power. You're in that situation. You basically put a target on your back. Deshaun Jackson had some comments, no outrage. NFL didn't do anything about it, suspending him. That's what I'm talking about. It's a double standard. On top of it, it's hypocrisy that runs the National Football League, and it's disappointing. And that's why a lot of the players don't like Roger Goodell and don't like the way the National Football League works, because they're not consistent in their decisions. The only consistency with the National Football League is the bottom line. If you're losing money on that situation, then they're going to do something about it. If not, it doesn't matter.
Right.
They're going to overlook it.
Right. And
same thing with concussions. For years, players are having concussions, and this is one of the things that he talked about. He didn't necessarily think that Goodell was concerned about the game, but overall, we know the game is better for that,
right?
Because you had so many players that were dealing with concussions. Well, the reason why the NFL did anything is because basically they were going to get sued. They had all these lawsuits from former players. They didn't care about the players' well-being. They still don't care about the players' well-being. They haven't done enough for those veteran players. That's why a lot of those players that played are struggling. That's what the NFL has to focus on. They have to be more consistent with their decision making. It's a lack of leadership with Roger Goodell and the rest of them. It's disappointing. It's hypocrisy, but this is the right decision by the NFL to get rid of John Gruden. I just would say, look, if you're going to be all in on this, be all in on every incident. And it's not like that, Jason. It's
no,
not.
you're right. And you're right. And an interesting thing, obviously, Mark Davis and Al Davis Al Davis, when he was alive, was very progressive, diversity, hired Art Shell. Amy Trask was a president of the organization, a woman. So, it had to really hurt Mark Davis to have to say, hey, John, you got two choices. I can either fire you or you can resign. And it'll be interesting to see what the financial terms of this resignation is. He's not going to have to pay him the remaining $60+ million, but I bet John Gruden gets a little bit of a parachute. He probably will get, I'm guessing, my guess is $10 million to walk out the door would be my guess. And, and again, the odds of him ever getting another coaching job are pretty slim. I could see him in 2, 3, 4 years, potentially getting a TV job again once all this settled down. It will be interesting to see what happens because, Gruden at some point will have a kind of a tell-all interview, whether it's 60 Minutes or with one of the NFL channels or whatever. He'll sit down with somebody the next, period of time and explain his side of the story. And again, he doesn't have any excuse and any out to say, hey, I was just kidding. But I think you'll see Gruden at some point back in the world of football in the next 3, 4, 5 years on the TV side of things.
I don't see it. I think his career is over with. I think it's a shame because you're going to look back at it. You're going to see a coach that possibly had an opportunity to go into the Hall of Fame if he wins another Super Bowl. I get it, his record, but winning 2 Super Bowls, also a broadcasting career down the tubes. I don't ever see him on TV. I don't see him ever coaching again. I don't think anybody will touch him, not in this day and age, not with everybody being offended, not with the cancel culture out there. I don't see it happening. Not only did he make racially insensitive comments, homophobic comments, but also comments against women. I mean, that right there is just not good. It's the trifecta of terribleness. It's just terrible. It's trifecta of being terrible.
And as you noted, the Buccaneers announced on Tuesday night that they're removing him from the Ring of Honor. Now, obviously, that was with his coaching career here in Tampa. So he'll come down from the Ring of Honor at Raymond James Stadium, which again, that will be something from a legacy perspective with the Buccaneers that'll live forever, that he got removed. I just hope, again, I hope John comes out and, and is contrite and say, you know what, I screwed up here. Everybody deserves a second chance. Again, he doesn't need any money. So it's not about money. He doesn't need the money. Hopefully he'll just come out and be contrite whenever he does decide to make a public comment and say, you know what, I really screwed up here. And like you said, hopefully the NFL nails everybody in those emails that have any of those kind of comments along those lines, that they nail all those guys too, men or women.
I mean, again, if you're going to set the standard and you're going to be a certain way and take a stand on something, do it with everybody. Go across the board. And, with his removal from the Ring of Honor, do you consider now Warren Sapp with his stuff off the field? Could you see the Bucs possibly looking at that situation in the day and times that we are right now? Could you see Warren Sapp being removed from the Ring of Honor? As great as he was, as much as he's a Hall of Famer, could the Bucs consider doing something along the lines of Warren Sapp being removed? What do you say?
I'm going to say no, because the Bucs will then be really hypocritical, because if you remove Warren Sapp for off the field discretion, a legal issue, then the question is, why did you sign Antonio Brown?
Well, some people say that's the reason why they shouldn't have did it with John Gruden. They shouldn't have removed him from the Ring of Honor. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I think it's a great decision at this point.
Right.
If you have Antonio Brown, you have Richard Sherman. So again, I get it. I understand the situation. It's bad right now. It's bad PR. It's a nightmare. There's all kinds of pressure from different groups. I get that, but people are looking at it from that standpoint. Okay,
You're right.
You remove Gruden. Are you going to remove Sapp? Why is Brown on the team? Why is Sherman on the team? Brown is cleaned up.
I'll say this: Sherman hasn't been convicted of anything, so I'll give him a pass at this point. But Antonio Brown, he's got a detailed history of indiscretions off the field. So, but it's a valid point. It's a valid point.
That's what we
Peter, great work. Tell everybody where they can find you on social media.
Absolutely. It's on NSPN. And of course, I Love St. Pete. We usually go Monday and Fridays. We'll see what happens this week here live on the evolution of Sports Talk Television. It's the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about.
And if you're in the Tampa Bay area Thursday night, if you're out watching the game, Peter will be doing pregame halftime at Ducky's Sports Bar down on Kennedy Boulevard in Tampa. He does a great job with the pregame, all that kind of good stuff. So let him know. Get with Peter. Definitely stop by Ducky's. Check him out on the I Love St. Pete platform, NSPN. He does a terrific job with all of his work. Peter and I are hosting the No Quarter Given podcast. We'll be releasing the Philadelphia Eagles on Wednesday, so you'll be able to hear that on Wednesday and throughout the rest of this week as we lead into the Thursday night game with the Eagles up in Philadelphia. Keep up the great work, Peter. Thanks again, and we'll talk real soon.
Sounds good.
All right, Rock Riley coming up next on the Powers on Sports podcast. Be right back.